15th June 1944, 02:17 a.m. A hedgerow-lined field outside St. Pierre, Normandy. The darkness is so complete it feels physical, like a weight pressing against the eyes. Only the faint glow of a dying barn fire flickers on the far horizon, painting the low clouds in shades of red and ash. Rain drifts sideways in thin, needling sheets. Mud sucks at boots. Metal steams. Engines idle in a slow, menacing growl. And somewhere in that darkness, the war is shifting. Panther tank at number 221 idles beneath an ancient apple tree whose branches shake in the wind. Inside, SS Untersturmführer Karl Hesch, 57 years old, wipes condensation from his gun sight with the sleeve of his black Panzer jacket. He listens to the storm hammering the turret roof. He likes the sound. It calms him. Around him, his crew mutters in low voices. Loader, young Fisher, jokes about the Tommy tin cans they'll break open before sunrise. Everyone chuckles. They've fought Shermans before. They know the script. The Americans or British show up in those clumsy, gasoline-soaked boxes, and German guns turn them into fireballs. Karl smiles, but something gnaws at him. A rumor whispered through the battalion hours earlier. The British have a new tank. Long-barreled thing. Some kind of upgraded Sherman. He dismissed it. Everyone did. The British had been tinkering with awkward modifications since North Africa. Nothing ever came of it. Still, he keeps his eyes on the tree line. You can almost feel the tension in the air, like a bowstring drawn too tight, waiting to snap. Behind Karl's Panther, 5 more tanks rest at varying intervals along a narrow farm track, their silhouettes hulking shapes against the faint glow of the distant flames. An SS reconnaissance unit had reported Allied armor pushing toward the village. The Panzers came to intercept. Karl's radio crackles softly. Distant chatter, then silence. The rain intensifies. 2 kilometers to the west, creeping through another tangle of hedgerows, Sergeant William Bill Armitage leans out of the turret of his M4 Firefly, number T232884. A cigarette shelters between his fingers, its embers glowing like a tiny coal amid the darkness. He draws on it, exhales a plume of smoke, then crushes it beneath his boot, smearing it into the mud atop his hull. Inside the Firefly, the massive 17-pounder gun dominates the cramped turret, an iron giant wedged into the Sherman's modest frame. It shouldn't fit. On paper it almost doesn't, but somehow the British made it work. Barely. Bill runs a hand along the gun's breech. The steel is cold enough to sting his fingers. Earlier that night, Lieutenant Marcus Caldwell briefed the crew. Intelligence believes Panthers are dug in around St. Pierre. If they appear, you are to engage at range. Stay concealed. Choose your first shot carefully. It will count. Marcus said it calmly, but Bill could see the weight in his eyes. Everyone knew what Panthers meant. Their frontal armor shrugged off conventional Sherman rounds. Their 75mm guns punched through Allied armor like paper. But this Firefly wasn't carrying conventional rounds. It carried APCBC shells, capable of slicing through German armor at distances the enemy wouldn't expect. Bill lowers himself into the turret. Rain drums on the hull. The engine hums under him like a sleeping beast. His gunner, Corporal James Lorne, stares through the periscope. Movement ahead. Maybe 200 meters past that hedgerow. Hard to tell. Bill nods. Steady. Keep her still. We fire only if we're sure. Outside, the darkness shifts. The hedgerow rustles. Something metallic glints between the leaves. Back at Panther 221, Karl lifts his head from the gun sight. He saw it. Just for a moment. A faint, unnatural movement beyond the hedgerow, like a shadow within a shadow. He leans forward. Loader, ready APCBC. Fisher slides the round into the chamber with a thump. The Panther's engine growls, louder now, vibrating the mud beneath it. Any sign? The driver asks. Karl hesitates, then peers through the sight again. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, a spark. Just a tiny reflection on glass, a periscope catching moonlight through the passing rain. Karl's stomach tightens. Tanks. British tanks. The driver grips the controls. Orders? Carl breathes in slowly, steadying himself. We fire first. But as Carl settles behind his sight, he freezes. Something is wrong. The silhouette through his optics isn't a normal Sherman. The gun barrel is too long, much too long. It reaches past the hedgerow like a spear, slender and lethal. A chill runs down his spine. What the hell is that? He adjusts the focus. His heart thumps in his throat. The British tank is repositioning slightly, its turret inching toward him, cautiously, deliberately, like a hunter lining up its prey. A long-barreled gun, an unfamiliar shadow, a Sherman, but not. Inside the Firefly, James Lorne whispers through clenched teeth. Target, Panther. Range, 450 meters. Bill swallows hard. Load APCBC. From the lower hull, Griggs mutters, loaded. Bill feels the whole world narrow to a single breath. He grips the radio. Lieutenant Caldwell, this is Armitage. We sight Panther armor. Permission to... A flash. A blinding streak tears through the night as the Firefly fires. The recoil slams through the turret like an earthquake. The shell slices the air. Inside Panther 221, Carl never hears the shell coming. There is only light. A white, brilliant, horrifying light blooming on the far hedgerow, then tearing straight into the Panther's turret face. The impact rings through the steel like a funeral bell. The inside erupts in sparks. Smoke fills the commander's cupola. Fisher screams. The driver hammers the controls in panic. Carl's vision blurs. He tastes metal. He feels heat building in the turret. He realizes what struck them. This is no normal Sherman. Outside, the battlefield goes deathly quiet for several seconds, as if even the rain has paused in midair. Bill watches the smoke rising from the Panther. He doesn't cheer. Nobody does. The crew simply stares, stunned by the violence of their own gun. The first Panther, disabled before it even fired. Then James whispers, voice trembling. Bill, more silhouettes, a whole line of them. Bill grips the turret rim. The night seems to shift. The battlefield seems to exhale. And somewhere between those hedgerows, the Germans begin to understand something they never expected to learn tonight. The Sherman has changed, and the Firefly is hunting. But the Panzers are not done yet. The wind shifts, not much, just a small turn, a cold gust rushing through the hedgerows, and reveal what lies beyond it. 3 more German tanks, their silhouettes black and sharp under the whirling sky, grind forward into new positions. Engines roar, tracks chew the wet soil, turrets swivel with predatory intent. The battlefield that had been silent a moment earlier now shudders with mechanical fury. Inside his Firefly, Sergeant Bill Armitage feels the vibration in his ribs. He's fought Germans before. He's heard their tanks coming. But this is different. These Panzers aren't moving cautiously. They're moving like something has wounded their pride. Bill, James whispers from the gunner's seat. They're spreading out. Left flank, right flank. They're trying to box us in. Bill wipes rain from his face with a trembling hand. Then we stay low. They don't know how many of us are out here. Feels like they're about to find out, Griggs mutters, thumping another APCBC round into the breach. The Firefly's big gun gleams in the flashes of distant lightning, a steel promise in the night. Bill steadies himself. James, pick your next target. Across the field, the Panthers adjust their formation. Panther 221 still burns, smoke curling around its hull like a shroud. A shadow moves beside it. Carl Heesch, coughing, blood streaking down his cheek, dragging his loader Fisher from the turret.
Fisher gasps, disoriented, alive only by luck and steel plating. "Carl!" Fisher chokes. "What hit us? That wasn't... It can't have been..." Carl shakes his head. His ears ring. He stares across the hedgerow where the shot originated. A Sherman, but armed with a gun long enough to challenge his own? What have the British done? His driver, Wrights, scrambles over the hull, shouting above the wind. "Command says more Shermans reported near the orchard. We push forward and flank them before they regroup." Carl wipes soot from his eyes, rage overtaking fear. "Then we get to the others. We move. Now." He looks back at burning 221. This isn't going to be another easy kill. The enemy has changed the rules, and they didn't tell the Germans. Bill hears the German engines revving. The sound swells, echoing along the hedgerow network like thunder rolling through a maze. James tightens his grip on the traverse controls. "They're charging, Bill." It's what Panthers do. They rely on shock, on size, on that damn gun of theirs. "And we rely on you to pick the right shot," Griggs murmurs from below. Bill swallows, heart pounding. "James, we're not retreating. If they close the distance, our armor won't save us. We hit them before they hit us." He rises slightly in the turret, rain splattering against his helmet, and peers over the hedgerow. 3 Panthers, maybe 4. The British column behind them will be slaughtered if these Panthers break through. James steadies the crosshairs. "Target! Panther, right side. Turret turned away from us." Bill nods. "Fire when ready." James breathes out once slowly. Then the Firefly roars. The shell slams into the rightmost Panther. It hits just beneath the turret ring, the most vulnerable seam. The explosion flashes white, then orange, then a deep, dirty red. The turret jolts sideways as if punched by a giant. Smoke bursts from the commander's hatch. Inside, panic erupts. A gunner screams. Hydraulic fluid sprays the interior like fireflies catching flame. The driver slams the reverse gear, but the tank barely moves before stalling. In the distance, German voices shout in alarm. Carl sees the flash. Another Panther, knocked out with a single shot. His blood runs cold. This is no fluke, not a lucky hit, not some miracle shot from a nervous rookie. This British tank, whatever Frankenstein weapon it carries, is slicing through Panzer armor as if it were buttered tin. Carl slams his fist against the burning hull of 221. "We flank them! Move the tanks! Now!" He leaps from the wreck, sprinting toward the nearest surviving Panther. But the Firefly is already repositioning. Bill ducks into the turret as German machine gun fire rips through the hedgerow above them, shredding leaves, snapping branches. "Driver, 10 yards back! Slow!" he shouts. The Firefly lurches into reverse, mud flying up behind it. James adjusts the turret, keeping the optics trained on the shadows beyond. Rain streaks down, making everything slippery, shimmering, unreal. You can almost feel the wind slapping against the steel hull, cold and sharp like a blade. Bill's radio crackles. It's Lieutenant Caldwell. "Armitage, what's your position? Report." Bill cups the handset over the mouthpiece. 2 Panthers disabled. More approaching. We're engaging. There's a pause. "Armitage, hold them. Reinforcements are minutes out." "Minutes." Bill laughs under his breath. "Minutes might as well be years." He looks at James. "We hold them." James nods. "We hold them." The loader slams another round home. The Firefly is ready. The Panthers break through the hedgerow. Branches crack. Mud sprays. 3 tanks emerge, dark shapes lit by the flicker of burning armor and lightning above. Carl climbs into Panther 213, gasping for breath, ordering the gunner to traverse left.
He can't see the Firefly. Not clearly, but he knows where it is. He points. "There! That hedgerow! The long gun! Kill it before it kills us!" The Panther's 75mm gun swivels with deadly smoothness, locking onto the patch of darkness where Bill's Firefly hides. Carl's heart slams in his chest. This shot will decide the night. Fire! Inside the Firefly, Bill hears it. The German gun firing isn't a sound, it's a physical force, a deep and monstrous concussion that shakes the ground. "Down!" Bill shouts. The Firefly's crew ducks instinctively. The shell screams past them, missing by inches, smashing into the field behind, mud and fire erupting skyward. If it had hit, Bill can't think about that. "James, now!" James fires. The Firefly's gun unleashes thunder for the third time. The shell arcs into the night and smashes into Panther 213's mantlet. Carl is thrown sideways. The gunner slams into the controls. The loader's ears bleed from the shockwave. But the tank isn't killed. Not yet. The German armor holds, barely. Bill sucks in a breath. Damn it. Solid hit, but not a kill. He stares at the glowing silhouette of the wounded Panther. It's still coming. James reloads, his voice steady, low. Then we finish it. Bill's fingers tremble as he steadies himself on the turret rim. Through the rain and fire and darkness, Panther 213 begins to turn its gun toward them again. This time, it won't miss. For one suspended instant, the entire battlefield seems to inhale. Rain hisses against hot steel. Smoke coils upward from shattered armor. The ruined Panther behind Carl burns like a signal flare, casting a sickly orange glow across the hedgerows. And in that trembling light, two guns, one German, one British, lock on to each other through the storm. 3 seconds, that's all Bill has. Inside the Firefly turret, the air feels electric. You can almost hear the tension. A metallic groan as the loader rams another 17-pounder round into the breech. A faint whine from the turret motor as James drags the sights toward the German tank creeping through the smoke. Bill grips the commander's periscope so tightly his knuckles whiten. "James." Almost there. "Take the shot the second you're on." Bill's voice cracks, not from fear, but from the crushing weight of responsibility. If he hesitates, even for a heartbeat, Panther 213 will fire again, and this time the Firefly will vanish in flames. Inside Panther 213, Carl wipes blood from his eyes. His gunner is cursing, hands shaking as he tries to correct their aim. The mantlet strike cracked something important. The turret traverse stutters, grinding horribly each time it moves. "Faster!" Carl barks. The gunner snarls back. It's jammed. The hit warped the mechanism. Carl slams his fist against the cupola rim. They're exposed, wounded, and somewhere in the dark, the British gunner is already lining up his next shot. Fisher, pale and trembling, peers through the loader's viewport. I see the muzzle flash. That long gun. "Carl, it's aiming right at us." Carl grits his teeth. A strange, unwelcome thing coils in his stomach. Fear. Real fear. The kind he hasn't felt since Kursk. "This Sherman. What is it?" Fisher whispers. Carl stares out into the night, jaw tightening. A killer. Back in the Firefly, the entire crew holds their breath. James tracks the Panther through drifting smoke. The silhouette is jagged, wounded, but still terrifying. The long, broad hull, the sharp angles of the turret, the unmistakable shape of a machine built for domination. He can see it too. Even half destroyed, the Panther looks like a predator. "James," he murmurs, "take the shot." 2 seconds pass. Then James stops breathing, stops blinking, and fires. The 17-pounder unleashes a thunderclap that shatters the night. The muzzle flash illuminates the hedgerow like lightning. Recoil slams through the turret, a violent punch to the ribs. The shell streaks across the field and hits the Panther square in the lower glacis. A perfect shot. The armor folds inward like paper.
The explosion bursts beneath the tank's floor, blasting the fuel lines, throwing sparks into the turret. A fireball erupts from the driver's hatch. Carl's world becomes fire and thunder. The shockwave knocks him backward into the turret wall. The gunner is thrown forward. Fisher screams as flames race across his coveralls. Carl refuses to die here. He kicks open the cupola hatch, pulls Fisher by the collar, and throws both of them out of the burning tank. They hit the muddy ground hard, rolling through puddles as flames roar behind them. For a moment Carl lies still, staring at the burning wreck. The steel giant, the pride of his battalion, now a dying furnace under the Normandy rain. And somewhere beyond the hedgerows, that long-barreled Sherman is already seeking its next target. Carl feels a chill deeper than the storm. "This isn't possible," he mutters. "No Sherman can kill a panther like this." Fisher coughs, trembling. "It just did." Carl looks toward the hedgerows, eyes narrowing. That British gun, it's not a Sherman, it's something else. Inside the Firefly, relief lasts exactly 1 heartbeat. Then Bill hears it. Distance rumbling. More Panthers. More tracks. Growing louder. James stiffens. Bill, more Panthers. Left side, they're repositioning. Griggs' voice rises from below. "We're running low on APCBC. We've got a few HE rounds, but we're not using HE on Panthers. We make the armor-piercing count." The driver, Masson, calls up from the front. "Bill, we can't stay here. They know our position. They'll zero in." Bill knows he's right. The Firefly is a beast when firing, but it's still a Sherman, thin-skinned, slow to reverse, vulnerable to a lucky hit. He peeks above the turret rim. Through drifting smoke he sees them, 2 Panthers swinging wide, trying to flank. One moving through the orchard.
Another circling behind a farmhouse. They aren't retreating. They aren't afraid. They're hunting. And the Firefly is alone. Bill's heart pounds. He tastes metal. He hears Lieutenant Caldwell's distant transmissions, but they feel far away, irrelevant to the moment. Right here, right now, the night belongs to whoever fires next. James murmurs, "Bill, what's the plan?" Bill exhales, slow and shaky. We move. He points to a narrow track leading deeper into the hedgerows, a choke point, a kill zone. If they want us, they'll have to come through there. James nods. Griggs loads another round. Mason revs the engine. The Firefly begins to back into the darkness, vanishing behind thick greenery. Bill raises the periscope one last time. Through the rain-washed lenses he sees Carl, silhouetted by the burning wreck, staring directly at them, as if memorizing the shape of the enemy that just defied everything he believed about tank warfare. Bill lowers the scope. We end this on our terms. He doesn't notice, can't notice, the shape shifting in the orchard to his right. A panther, already turning its turret toward the Firefly's new path, already calculating its shot, already preparing to end this duel with a single, perfect round. The Firefly eases backward down the narrow track, engine rumbling low to avoid drawing attention. Branches scrape along the turret sides, leaves slap against the hull. The hedgerows close in like the walls of a tunnel, turning the world into nothing but shadows and rain. Bill keeps one hand on the turret rim, the other clutching the periscope. His heart is still thundering from the last engagement, each beat echoing in the confined steel chamber. "Easy, easy," he whispers to Mason, who maneuvers the tank with delicate pressure on the controls. Behind them, the glow of burning Panthers reflects off the low clouds, fire smeared across the night sky like a wound. James mutters from the gunner's position. 2 more Panthers on our right, one moving fast. Bill nods. They'll chase us, but they don't know this track. James shifts his weight, the turret creaking softly. "And you do?" Bill allows a ghost of a smile. "I've been fighting in hedgerows longer than they have. Griggs laughs once, short, nervous. Let's hope the Germans haven't learned gardening. The crew chuckles, briefly. Then the Firefly glides deeper into the narrow passage, swallowed by darkness. But in the orchard to their right, the predator waits. Panther 124 sits perfectly still beneath an arch of twisted apple branches, its hull draped in shadow. Tree trunks hide its flanks. Leaves cling to its turret like camouflage netting. Only the faint gleam of rainwater betray its massive shape. Inside, Untersturmführer Otto Rieger stands half out of the cupola scanning the dark with binoculars. He is calm, cold, methodical. Nothing like Karl. Where Karl fights with emotion, anger, pride, defiance, Otto fights with precision. His gunner whispers, "Commander, movement on the far hedge, a Sherman, long gun." Otto lowers the binoculars slowly. The British ace. He has heard the stories spreading through the regiment since the invasion began. Some claim a single upgraded Sherman has killed more German tanks in one night than any unit had expected. Others claim it's a myth, Allied propaganda, a morale trick. But Otto has never believed in myths, only in calculations. He watches the Firefly slowly disappear down the narrow track. "They think they're retreating to cover," he murmurs. "In reality," he gestures to the gunner, "they're offering us the perfect shot." The Panther's 75mm gun swings toward the track with chilling smoothness. Otto adjusts the range dial himself. "Loader, PZ Grind 29, armor piercing." The loader nods. "Loaded." Otto inhales. Rain strikes the hull in staccato rhythm. The gunner rests his hand on the trigger. They wait just a few seconds more until the Firefly crosses the small clearing where the track bends. Otto whispers, "Fire." Inside the Firefly, Bill feels something. Not a sound, not a flash, just an instinct, an animal twitch deep in his spine. "Mason, stop, stop!" The driver slams the brakes. The Firefly lurches to a halt. James jerks his head toward Bill. "What's wrong?" Bill's gut tightens. He doesn't know. He just knows. "Reverse. Slow. Now." Mason begins backing up. Half a second later, the Panther fires. The German shell rips through the clearing like a bolt of molten iron. It strikes the exact spot where the Firefly would have been if Bill hadn't halted. A perfect kill shot delivered into empty space. The explosion throws dirt and branches into the air. A broken tree trunk sails past the Firefly's bow, smashing into the mud with a sickening thud. Inside Panther 124, Otto's gunner curses. "Commander, we missed." Otto holds up one hand. Correct and reload. The loader rams another round into the breach. The gunner adjusts elevation. They know we're here now. That means they'll try something desperate, and desperate men are predictable. Inside the Firefly, Bill feels cold sweat on his neck. He doesn't speak for a moment. The near-death shock hits the crew like a delayed punch to the gut. James breaks the silence. "Bill, how did you know?" Bill swallows. The smell of cordite still clings in the air. "I didn't. I just felt something." Griggs whispers, "A Panther's out there. Close." Bill nods. He knows exactly what they're dealing with now. A careful one. A professional. Not an overeager commander like Karl.
A hunter. Bill leans forward, eyes narrowing. "James, pivot turret left, slow. Keep low." James moves the turret 1 degree at a time, breathing through clenched teeth. They inch the gun barrel toward the orchard. Bill listens. The rain, the engine idling, his crew's shaky breaths, and then a faint metal clink. Just one. Impossible to hear unless you're trained for it. The subtle ring of a tank adjusting its gun elevation in the dark. "There," Bill whispers. "Orchard." He taps Mason's shoulder. Forward 10 feet, hard right, ready to fire. Mason revs the engine. The Firefly rolls forward. James angles the long 17-pounder toward the orchard shadows. Then Bill freezes. because he suddenly realizes the Panther is already aiming at them. The duel is seconds from ending. Bill breathes in. James. On target! Fire! The Firefly's shell blasts into the orchard just as the Panther fires again. Both tanks fire at the same instant. Both shots scream into the darkness. Both crews brace for death. Only one will survive the next half-second. The first shell arrived without a sound. It was 10:42 a.m., June 14, 1944, outside the hedgerow-choked village of Lingeva. SS Understurmführer Karl Heinz Ryder sat perched in the commander's cupola of his Panther, scanning the tree line through binoculars that still held the morning's condensation. The battlefield crackled with distant rifle fire, but here it felt unnervingly calm. Too calm. Then the calm shattered. A blinding flash burst from somewhere inside a tangled row of hedges, barely visible through the dust. Ryder never even heard the impact, only felt the Panther lurch violently to the right, as if struck by a charging bull. The crew was thrown against their stations, warning lamps flickered, a metallic shriek tore through the turret where the shell had punched clean through the side armor. Inside the Firefly that fired it, Sergeant Joe Harper's loader, Trooper Ellis, was already slamming another long, slender 17-pounder round into the breech, his fingers trembling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Harper didn't waste breath shouting. He only tightened his jaw and called the range again. 1700, same target. The Firefly's gun thundered. You can almost taste the cordite, feel the turret shake, hear the clang of spent casings hitting the steel floor. This wasn't the sluggish duel Allied crews had suffered through for years. This was something entirely different. Faster, louder, deadlier. Inside the Panther, Ryder pulled himself upright, dazed, ears ringing. Smoke poured from the cracked turret floor. His radio operator shouted something, or maybe screamed it, but the second 17-pounder round arrived before Ryder could answer. It entered just below the mantlet, slicing into the gunner's position with brutal precision. A sound followed, not an explosion, not a crack, but a sudden absence. Something eerie, something unnatural. Silence. The crew of the Firefly watched the once fearsome Panther shudder, stop, and slump into stillness. The entire gun line of SS tanks, so confident, so accustomed to shrugging off Allied shells, seemed to freeze all at once. Ellis whispered, "Holy hell! Did we just—" "Load," Harper cut him off. His voice was steady, but he too felt the shifting tide. For the first time since landing in Normandy, their tank wasn't prey. It was a predator. Across the fields, German tank commanders stared in disbelief. A single Sherman, a Sherman of all things, had just taken out a Panther at nearly 2 kilometers. That wasn't supposed to be possible. Not by Allied doctrine, not by physics, not by anything they had been told. What else had the British hidden in those hedgerows? As Harper's crew scanned for their next mark, the German line rippled with a sudden and unfamiliar hesitation. Orders crackled frantically over Panzer radios. Some crews thought they had been hit by anti-tank guns. Others believed they were ambushed by multiple Shermans. None understood that only one tank, one modified, underestimated tank, was responsible. And then, as Ryder's burning Panther began to collapse inward, its ammunition cooking off, a wave of black smoke rose like a grim signal over the battlefield. German crews had mocked the Sherman for years. Now they were staring at its ghostly new silhouette, slightly longer gun, slightly taller turret, and realizing too late that this Sherman was different, much different. But the Firefly's most astonishing moment was still ahead. A shot so improbable, so humiliating that surviving German tank commanders would talk about it for the rest of their lives. The smoke drifting above Ryder's Panther had barely begun to thin when Sergeant Harper spotted something moving far beyond the hedgerows. A dark shape gliding across a distant ridge like a wolf pacing the tree line. A tiger. Panzerkampfwagen 6. The monster every Allied tanker had learned to fear long before they ever saw one. Its silhouette was unmistakable even at extreme range. The tall turret, the thick, slab-like armor, the long 88mm gun that had chewed through countless Shermans since North Africa. Most crews would have backed into cover, prayed for smoke, or simply waited for the inevitable. But the Firefly didn't reverse. Harper didn't panic. Ellis didn't freeze. Instead, the entire crew leaned forward subconsciously, as if instinctively drawn toward the challenge. "Range?" Harper whispered. Corporal Briggs steadied his breathing and peered through the Firefly's newly marked sight reticle. British engineers had scribbled the revised ballistic tape by hand, the ink still smudged in places.
2,300, Briggs answered. Maybe a little more. It was, by all accounts, a ridiculous distance, even for a Tiger, even for a Panther, and certainly for a Sherman. Briggs' finger hovered over the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. He studied the Tiger's slow movement, its careful turn, the way it angled its armor as though conducting a battlefield ballet. The German commander clearly believed he was beyond danger. Why wouldn't he? No Allied tank had ever cracked a Tiger from that far. "You're not supposed to make this shot," Ellis murmured. Briggs exhaled. "I know." Inside the Tiger, Obersturmführer Dieter Kroll was surveying the smoking ruins of the previous duel with mild irritation. To him, this was simply another skirmish, another cleanup operation, another morning where German armor would reclaim dominance. His Tiger rolled forward with deliberate confidence, engine grumbling like something half mechanical, half beast. He didn't even look toward Harper's Firefly. That arrogance would cost him everything. Briggs squeezed the trigger. The Firefly roared, a deep, violent crack that echoed across the fields, scattering crows from the treetops. The recoil jolted through the turret, rattling loose dust from the ceiling. Through the sight, Briggs could barely track the vapor trail of the 17-pounder APDS shell as it cut through the humid Normandy air. 2 seconds passed, then a third. Nothing happened. Harper felt a knot form in his chest. Maybe they'd miscalculated. Maybe the round had dropped short. Maybe the Tiger really was untouchable at this distance. Briggs reached for another shell, but before he could, a tiny spark bloomed on the side of the Tiger's turret.
Then it punched through. The Firefly crew saw a burst of flame erupt behind the German tank's commander's cupola as the round ripped clean through both sides of the turret. An entry hole barely the size of a fist, and exit hole big enough to crawl through. The Tiger jerked violently, its gun slamming downward as if bowing in sudden defeat. Inside, Kroll was thrown against the turret wall, his headset ripped free by the shock. Panic flooded the intercom. His loader yelled that the breech was cracked. His gunner shouted that they were losing pressure. The Tiger, the mighty Tiger, began to die in the most humiliating way imaginable. Not in a duel, not in a close-quarters brawl, but from a single shot fired from well beyond what German doctrine considered even remotely possible. "Hit confirmed," Briggs whispered, almost in disbelief. The battlefield went still once more. Even the birds had stopped. Harper's crew didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They simply stared at the distant shape of the crippled Tiger, smoke beginning to curl upward like a thin black finger. Because they knew. This wasn't just a kill. This was the moment the German Armored Corps realized their reign of unquestioned superiority had ended. And word of what had happened here, of a Sherman killing a Tiger at impossible range, would spread through both armies like wildfire. But the Firefly's legend was about to grow even darker, because the Germans, furious and humiliated, began to hunt it with a vengeance. The Tiger was still burning when the counterattack began. Not a chaotic rush of engines and treads, but something slower, colder, deliberate. At 11:18 a.m., the distant rumble started. Faint at first, like thunder rolling beneath the earth. Harper felt it through the Firefly's hull before he heard it. The vibrations traveled up through the seat, across his boots, into his ribs. More armor. Heavy armor. Briggs pressed his eye closer to the sight. Multiple contacts. North Ridge? No. East, too. They're spreading out. It wasn't just one Tiger coming for them. It was three. Supported by a pair of Panthers and at least one Jagdpanzer IV, moving low along the hedgerows like a stalking reptile. These weren't green crews. These were veterans, the kind who read the battlefield like a map they'd drawn themselves. Harper understood instantly. The Germans weren't engaging the Allied line. They were hunting them. The Firefly. Word travels fast in war, especially when something overturns everything men believe about their own invincibility. German tank commanders had mocked the Sherman for the Tommy Cooker, the Ronson, but now one lone Firefly had shattered two frontline panzers in minutes, including a Tiger at impossible range, and that humiliation demanded retribution. Inside Panther 213, Hauptmann Vulture Brecht adjusted his headset and barked sharp, clipped commands. His voice was ice. He had seen the Tiger's death through his own optics. The shots still haunted him, the physics-defying precision, the brutal finality of it. No one under his command was to fire unless he ordered it. No one was to advance recklessly. Their formation tightened, angling to flush the Firefly from hiding like a pack of iron wolves closing in on a wounded stag. Back in the British position, Ellis swallowed hard. "We need to move, Sarge." But Harper didn't answer. He was listening. Not to the rumble of enemy engines, but to the absence of his own. The Firefly's engine ticked faintly as it cooled, their camouflage netting still draped over the upper hull, blending their tank into the hedgerow like a shadow stitched into the leaves. Briggs broke the silence. "They know we're here. Not exactly where. That's our edge." The Germans advanced with surgical caution. Every few meters, a commander halted his tank to scan. Turrets rotated in slow, predatory arcs. Somewhere in the tree line ahead, a Panther fired a single shot, not at them, but as a test, the shell slamming into a patch of earth to provoke a reaction. Harper didn't give them one. "You hold your nerve now," he whispered, more to himself than to his crew. "Hold it. Hold it." Through the sight, Briggs watched the closest Panther creeping forward, turret angled, hatch open. A commander leaned out, searching the hedgerows with binoculars. His expression was calm, confident. Too confident. Briggs' finger tightened on the trigger. "Not yet," Harper warned. The Panther's engine growled, climbing the gentle slope toward them. 50 more meters, and it would have the angle to fire straight into the Firefly's position. 40 meters. 30 meters. "He's going to see us, hiss." "He already thinks he has," Harper said. Then the Panther made its mistake. It rotated slightly, just a few degrees, exposing its thinner side armor for a single heartbeat as it adjusted to avoid a shallow ditch. Harper didn't give Briggs the order. He didn't need it. The Firefly erupted with a violent cannon-shot crack. The 17-pounder shell tore through the Panther's flank like a blade slicing silk. Flames blew out of the open hatch as the commander disappeared in a flash of fire. Across the field, the German formation faltered. For one heartbeat, one breath, one collective moment of horrified recognition. The Firefly was still alive, and it had just claimed another victim.
Killing one Panther only sharpened the Germans' determination. The remaining two Tigers began to fan out, trying to cinch the noose. The Jagdpanzer IV dropped lower behind a berm. The second Panther shifted to flank from the far hedgerow. The pack had been wounded, not defeated. And now they would strike back with everything they had. Harper's tank sat motionless, muzzle smoking, every man inside listening to the tightening ring of steel and rage closing around them. The Firefly had 3 shells left in the ready rack. 3 shots between survival and annihilation. The next minutes would determine whether the Firefly became a legend or a tomb. For a moment, just one, the battlefield fell into an unnatural quiet. No engines, no shouting, no gunfire. Just the distant crackle of the burning Panther and the faint metallic ticking of the Firefly's cooling barrel. Inside Harper's tank,
No one moved. 3 shells left. 3 enemy heavyweights closing in. The Firefly had climbed from underdog to apex predator in one morning, but predators could be hunted too. Harper reached for his throat mic. Briggs, target priority. The gunner didn't hesitate. Tiger on the left is closest. The other one's trying to flank. Jacques Pons is slow, it'll hang back. Ellis added, voice tight. That gives us, what, a minute? If we're lucky, Harper answered. You could almost feel the Firefly's crew breathing in sync. Shallow, fast breaths that fogged the dim morning light filtering through the periscope lenses. Dust drifted down from the turret roof with every distant rumble. Then Briggs' voice cut in, sharp and low. Movement. Tiger, left hedgerow. Harper pressed his eye to the periscope. There it was. A massive tiger eye creeping between 2 rows of oaks, trying to use the shadows as cover. Each time the engine revved, leaves trembled. The long 88mm gun moved like a spear searching for its mark. The German commander inside had learned from the other's mistakes. The tiger was angled, cautious, presenting its thickest armor.